The Art of Flocking, Cultural Stewardship in the Parks, is a collaboration between the Chicago Park District, the Terra Foundation for American Art, Art Design Chicago Initiative. And it was inspired by writer, doula, and pleasure activist Adrienne Maree Brown, who wrote a really inspirational book called Emergent Strategy. This idea of artists and organizers working as a flock, the idea of really listening deeply to nature, really building on concepts of biomimicry and speculative fiction, learning from the lessons of Octavia Butler. These are all really foundational in Adrienne Maree Brown's Emergent Strategy, and they inspired this project.
The Art of Flocking specifically talks about birds and talks about how birds flock together. But then also, like, if there's a change of wind, you're going in a different direction and one bird will take over, so that there's not one leader, that it changes, the leadership changes depending on which direction you're going in the wind. And so the Art of Flocking is a combination of those readings from Emergent Strategy. It was also a combination of different artists throughout Chicago, learning from them, listening to them.
Artists like Hector Duarte, a Pilsen-based muralist and public artist, the artist collective Sapphire and Crystals, which is Chicago's first and longest standing Black women's artist collective, founded by Marva Lee Pitchford Jolly and Felicia Grant Preston in 1986. So the ideas behind our work together include migration, identity, transformation. What does it mean to be self-determinate? What does it mean to work in solidarity? Our two programs, Young Cultural Stewards Fellowship and Artseed, really took inspiration from Adrienne Maree Brown's scholarship and our featured artists.
Our summer began at the Southside Community Arts Center, where our teaching artists and facilitators had a chance to meet members from Sapphire and Crystals, both as part of a panel and as part of individual interviews, as part of a gathering, which was a day-long celebration of art, music, and culture that was hosted at the Southside Community Arts Center.
Sapphire and Crystals is a gathering of Black women's voices, Black women's ideas, Black women's talents.
Sapphire and Crystals was the first show that I had in a gallery space. So that, I was just, totally excited and pumped up. And the first one in 1987 was right here in the Southside Community Arts Center. But as more people came on and it grew, it became not just Sapphire and Crystals, the exhibition, but Sapphire and Crystals, the group.
It was one of the rare opportunities, really, for African American women artists to have an opportunity and a venue to exhibit.
A lot of us as women had similar issues with accessibility, and even, quite frankly, the idea of putting a show on solo, for example, is pretty overwhelming. So when you can come together with a dozen other people and we can share responsibilities. I mean, we produced catalogs, I think, for each show, which was a lot of work. Thank you, Juarez.
Really, exactly.
But those are important documents to have, and those are important opportunities for us to speak about our own narrative.
I can remember some of the wonderful meetings that we would have at Marva's, either up in the condo or downstairs in her studio. But the kind of support that we gave each other was just, in my opinion, phenomenal.
Marva Jolly was kind of our founding mother in Sapphire and Crystals. She's a sapphire and we were the crystals. Felicia Grant Preston and her brought a number of women together to discuss this as a collective and what we could do.
Me in particular, I felt I was the real rookie of the group, and I just felt a lot of love and support that I probably would not have developed as an artist had it not been for Sapphire and Crystals.
We need black women, and you need black women artists. If you look back at our history as a city, black people have been a very strong vein in our creative history. If you look at the whole history of WPA and the Southside Community Arts Center, it's been a good chunk of our contemporary and modern history in Chicago has a very strong African American component. And we really can't afford to lose any part of our creative history. And especially this one here, that even though it's not codified as a brick and mortar institution, it's still very much a virtual institution where young artists are still like, well, how can I join? How can I be a part of this? And to not have it there creates this sort of misguided notion that maybe we did not have a culture. And for us to have survived for 30 years means that we have, not just us as a collective, but black women artists in general.
I think that as a teaching artist, it was really important to meet the artists that we were talking about. I feel like Sapphire and Crystals was sort of like this collective that acted as their like own sort of flock that depended on one another in order to like survive like in the art world.
And they do a lot of work to do with like ancestry, history, ritual, themes surrounding that, and community togetherness.
Those elements of being in community and with one another, we're all woven in together, and we're a huge part of the way that we design the curriculum.
The experience for me has been just really kind of confirming that art is a solution, art is a way to bring people together. And doing the kind of art flocking and green leadership, integrating nature and integrating what you can about human people's senses and abilities with their own confidence to do things, to create art or to register to vote or to make something happen in the community is kind of what everybody needs to be learning, so that ownership is felt by a new generation to this place.
Our next visit was to the studio of Hector Duarte in Pilsen, which was just an amazing thing in and of itself to see the working space of an artist. And we started making the butterflies for our culminating project.
Mi nombre es Héctor Duarte, soy pintor y vivo aquí en Pilsen, dentro de un gigante que está afuera. Dentro de un gigante. Pinté este mural afuera que se llama Gulliver en el País de las Maravillas. Y estoy haciendo alusión al gigante, pero cambió un poquito la historia. La historia es un gigante latino que cruzó la frontera y ahora se está liberando, está atado con alambre de púa, y el alambre de púa representaría lo que es la frontera. Pero ese gigante representa a 11 millones de personas que no tienen pues, su registro oficial aquí en este país. Pero esos 11 millones pagan impuestos y no pueden disfrutar de los beneficios de este país. Entonces es un llamado a la gente para que podamos presionar a los políticos para que pasen la ley de amnistía o una nueva ley de migratoria, para que puedan quedarse aquí pues, y disfrutar del sueño americano, que es lo que ofrece este país, pero parece que ya no. Una cosa interesante es cuando llegué la primera vez acá, me sorprendí cuánto mexicano había. Y dije, lo que están haciendo estos acá. Y pues tan lejos de la frontera. Se me hizo raro y a la vez me gustó, porque pues aquí ya podía sentirme como en casa, ¿verdad? En Pilsen, además. Al ver toda esa referencia de tantos mexicanos tan lejos de México, y después me di cuenta, aprendí que había unas mariposas que iban de Canadá hasta Michoacán. Dijo, pues en mi estado, ¿qué pasó? ¿Por qué yo no sabía eso? Nadie sabía en realidad. Fue un canadiense, un profesor canadiense que descubrió eso y les siguió el rastro y fueron a dar hasta Michoacán. A partir de eso empecé a relacionarlo con la migración de los mexicanos, de michoacanos, hasta aquí. Y esa fue la primera conexión que hice, de que las mariposas son migrantes y nosotros también, pero ellas van y vienen y nosotros ya no regresamos. Aquí me di cuenta que lo que había dejado en México, la cultura, porque aquí todo es diferente. A las nuevas generaciones trato de mostrarles, de enseñarles algo de México, porque muchos pues nacieron acá y ni español hablan, entonces les trato de inculcar y decirles, si tú conoces tu cultura, tú puedes aprender de tus raíces y a la vez mejorar en el futuro. Puedes crear una cultura nueva y tomar lo mejor de la cultura mexicana y lo mejor de la cultura de aquí, de este país. Cada quien puede rehacer su cultura dentro de esta ciudad. Y si no se hiciera así, otra vez quedaríamos asimilados y perderíamos de dónde venimos. Y la memoria se perdería. Por eso es importante ir en contra de la globalización, pues en todos los aspectos, porque nos hacen olvidar nuestras tradiciones, olvidar nuestra forma de vivir de cada quien, de cada tradición, y así no la pasamos a los niños, a los jóvenes. Y necesitamos que siga vivo esa llama para que no se pierda la memoria cultural. Si uno no conoce de dónde viene, no podría uno hacer ningún cambio, porque estamos metidos, inmersos en esta forma de vivir y no vemos para los lados, no vemos para atrás. Esta cultura no tiene historia, entonces tenemos que cambiar eso, tenemos que regresar y eso es parte de la médula del futuro. Si no, nada va a pasar y vamos a seguir repitiendo, como digo, los errores del pasado.
The way that I was able to sort of like see this work firsthand and hear Hector Duarte in his studio talk about his own work, his paintings, I sort of realized that it's all about like our own human experiences and how we're able to pass those on, like by teaching a skill, like by creating art together.
One thing we did this summer was we were looking at ideas of solidarity and self-determination, which are themes that you see both in Hector Duarte's work and Sapphire and Crystals. And so it was really interesting, especially with a bunch of our kids at Langdon Park, for example. It was one of the most diverse parks that we'd been to, with a bunch of refugee kids and then also kids that had different ethnic backgrounds and that sort of thing. But throughout all of our art activities with them, they sort of policed each other and sort of helped each other out. There were a lot of kids who would see that their work wasn't what they thought it should be or up to standards, and they felt really bad about it. But then after time, we got them to sort of start looking at their work in a way that they didn't have to measure it up to someone else's standards, or that they have their own standards that they can measure it up to and sort of learn and grow with what they're doing. But it was really interesting to see one of our kids like hated his work at first, and then after some time he started to push through and see the beauty in it, and just the idea of self-determination through that was really powerful.
I've learned a lot working with young people in the city of Chicago on making art. I've realized it's a very resilient city. It's a city where young people are oftentimes summarized and put into categories and boxes, and art allows for them to begin that lifelong journey of self-definition and finding out their talents and their abilities. And hopefully what Azucena and myself have been trying to share with the young people here is providing some sort of good for them and providing them with an opportunity for growth and learning more about who they are and what they can accomplish.
What do we kind of think about when we see butterflies? Do they make us feel happy, sad?
Happy because they're beautiful.
Happy because they're beautiful. Youth just love making art. They love exploring with the material. They love learning about the artists we're introducing them to, especially because, you know, at school they learn a lot about typical artists like Picasso, Van Gogh, but they never, you know, sometimes they don't get the opportunity to learn about Chicago-based artists. So it's really nice just giving them this artwork that comes from, you know, people that are from here, from Chicago, especially people of color, because I feel that youth need to learn about, you know, art doesn't just come from one person, it comes from many, like, different cultures.
One artist that I got to meet through Young Cultural Stewards was Hector Duarte, and I kind of really liked meeting him because I'm Mexican, he's Mexican, he was from that background, and his murals have so much of a story behind them, which is really nice to see that artists really care about what they bring to the world. And it's amazing to see how when he tells the story of how he came and what inspires him, it like really touched my heart because it's like the power of art, I guess you could say.
As an artist, as a creative, you need to have a variety of different experiences to fill your creative well. And even in developing as an artist, it's important for you to see your forebears, to see your elders, to see models of success that are doing the same sorts of things that you might like to do.
For the past 6 weeks, we have been doing a lot of art and like opening up to one another, and we've been focusing on butterflies. So the first to second week we're focusing on the egg of the butterfly. Once we're like an egg, we're kind of protected, and like when we get a caterpillar, we get to like roam around. And the cocoon is like when we really like focus on ourselves and like close up. But then once we come out, it's like a butterfly, and you could see how we have changed.
There's elements of the butterfly and it connecting back to the themes of the art of flocking and nature. I think it's really profound because it really is relating it to the idea of complete transformation.
I think that it's important to talk about power and transformation in these communities because so many times it feels like we don't have power and we don't have control over the things that happen in our surroundings, and we're trying to, I guess, plant the seed that, one, we do have power and we can use art as a form of, like as a tool, that we can change our communities ourselves, that we, one, can change ourselves, that we're the ones that we've been waiting for. We don't need anybody else.
Through Young Cultural Stewards and Artseed, our hope is to use the ideas and the trauma and the joys and the, you know, like the desires of the youth, and really show them that that is the stuff that we can use, that you use and you consciously use to become something completely different, you know, something that is like beyond your wildest dreams.
The most powerful part of this summer yet has been painting with an artist. Meeting Arlene in person was inspiring because we've talked about how she started painting on the streets. She started painting and showing off to her friends. So that's what inspired me. I've been painting in the streets too. I put myself out there, which is really scary, but it ended up being something like coming out of my shell, and I'm really glad I have. And my parents are like proud of me too. All these artists I met inspired me to do more art and to be something I couldn't imagine I would be.
I'm from the South Side, so seeing work like this being done in my particular neighborhood is beautiful, and just to be a part of it is life-changing because you get to make an immediate impact on not only your neighborhood but kids that will affect them in their future. And it's imperative that our work is being done in these communities because these are the communities that lack resources and also lack faces in the community. So it's even more empowering for them to see individuals that look like them and sound like them doing work in their community, and to let the youth know that we care for them.
In the community, we're known as the Forgotten. And the reason I think is because we do not get a lot of programming over here because we're so far south. We do have an opportunity to visit a bunch of other different parks and different communities, but you know what, this is from where I'm from, and I've been able to expose him to theater, culture, music, dance, all this because of our Chicago parks. And why not go? It's all free. You know, a lot of the community cannot afford to take their kids to these performances or these circuses and plays. We have all that accessible to us for free, and we just fully take advantage of it. And I always stress to everyone in our community to go ahead and take advantage of it so that we can continue to get all these wonderful programs for the parks.
This is like one of the first programs that are just very intentional about being present in like marginalized communities and being like a positive presence that is all about like giving and growing and like learning.
Like when I first got to the park and the field trip, I only knew about like 2 or 3 people, including my sister. So I ain't know many of the people. But then we started hanging out a little bit more at the field trips, you know. Everybody got to know each other, and we have like good talents out here, and so we just put them to use.
I think it's important that we learn about each other because other people are so evolved around themselves, they're not really opening up to other people. And once you get to know other people, you get to know other stories and other backgrounds.
I think that as adults, we really struggle to connect with one another. And if we can plant those seeds just as like in these formative years of 12 to 14, even before you go off to college, that, you know, like it's important to be curious and to be open and supportive of people who don't look like you, who don't talk like you, by just like putting youth in the same space and being like, what do you all have in common? Or like, even if they aren't in the same space, but one of the things we talked about was having, you know, like using technology to be like, okay, well, we have these cameras, we have these phones, like let's live feed our situation here and like ask questions, even though we're in different parts of the city, and then come together. And then I think that we can really start to build ways to heal and grow together.
In addition to the art making, I think a really huge part of the program was this sort of like social and emotional world that we as teaching artists, and also like the kids in the park that were participating in the program, was sort of navigating together.
Here, you're learning to take out your emotions, you're learning to be friends, have family, just rely on other people. We have all these conversations about friends and where we come from, and like we all just kind of listen and we all just bond together. It's more than painting because you build friendships, families, and you could fall on that when you're like down deep and you need to come up to the clouds. Like, there are people that you can talk to here that just helps you do anything.
This program really helps people learn what they're made of and learn what others are made of, and it kind of brings peace in one environment. And if you can do that in one environment, then you can do that in one community, which is really cool.
So today we're at 31st Street Beach for our culminating event. I'm from Artsy, there's Young Cultural Stewards, and we all came together for our culminating event. We brought some of the work that we made over the summer. The kids made murals from the west side, in particular the art that we did on the south side. We made the one-day houses where kids reflected on houses that resemble the homes in their communities, but also the power of fixing things and taking control of your own neighborhood. We also have a ton of kids that's from our individual programs that are here, and also a bunch of walk-ups off the beach. Anyone is welcome. It's just an event to celebrate all the work that we did across the city this year.
Getting near the end of our programming, we started to talk about our culmination event and get them to think about how they would like to portray themselves in the public, or things that were important to them in the community that they wanted to share. So they made flags, they made banners, they made community murals, and different things that they wanted to share. And that was super fun. It was a really great turnout.
Our culminating event at the end of the Art of Flocking was a butterfly parade at the Margaret Burroughs Beach. We partnered with the Jabberwocky Marionettes and young people from the Young Cultural Stewards and Artsy programs created butterflies from across 22 different parks in order to imagine a world without borders. We had a procession that went to La Ronda Paracata, Hector Duarte's public sculpture within the Burnham Wildlife Corridor. And it was really this opportunity for young people all across the city to come together, to play, to laugh, to honor these artists. Sapphire and Crystals were there. Juarez Hawkins and Arlene Turner Crawford did a beautiful ceremony. really thanking the ancestors. They created an altar in the space. Hector Duarte talked about the significance of Paracata and the migration of the monarch butterfly from North America to Mexico. And the young people really got to be celebrated.
It was just kind of a culminating expression of just being free and like playing in the beach and doing artwork and running around with butterfly wings. And so it was, I think, probably over most of the things that I experienced over the summer, it was like the vision for like one vision for freedom and for transformation.
There's an art to flocking, staying close enough not to crowd each other, aligned enough to maintain a shared direction, and cohesive enough to always move towards each other. Adrienne Maree Brown.